The Rangers just took a massive gamble, trading 5 prospects away for left-handed pitcher MacKenzie Gore. But why did they do it? And why now?
You are Locked On Rangers, your daily Texas Rangers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are locked onto the Texas Rangers, the first and best daily Rangers podcast. I'm Bryce Paddock, a cripplingly addicted Texas Rangers fan, covering this team for 12 seasons, including all 7 as the founder and host of this podcast. Thank you all so much for making Locked On Rangers your first listen every single day. If not already, you can follow me on Twitter at Bryce Paddock. You can follow the show at Locked On Rangers. Hit subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform and on YouTube, where the best way you can help grow the show is to comment nearly any single thing below. Now, on today's show, I'm talking about why the Rangers made the trade for MacKenzie Gore, why now and why him, and if this could come back to hurt the Texas Rangers in the long run. But let's start with MacKenzie Gore. Why did the Rangers trade for MacKenzie Gore? Well, the first reason of why the Rangers traded for MacKenzie Gore is because MacKenzie Gore is deeply underutilized with the Washington Nationals. This is a left-handed pitcher who averages 95 miles an hour with his four-seam fastball, which is not even the pitch that he used all that frequently in terms of just fastball usage for his career last year. I mean, it is a huge weapon for him, but it is not his best pitch. That is probably the curveball, a huge swing and miss curveball. It has really good velocity. There's not a whole lot of pitchers who throw the curveball as well as MacKenzie Gore, but that four-seam fastball, being a left-handed starting pitcher who sits 95 miles an hour or more, there are fewer than 10 of them out there in the league, and most of them are pretty darn good. And MacKenzie Gore is no exception. Now, you may look at the overall numbers last year with the Washington Nationals and be confused why the Rangers traded so many prospects for a guy who, although he was an all-star, the overall counting stats don't look particularly impressive. 30 starts, a 4.17 ERA, less than 160 innings, 1 out shy, and 185 strikeouts. That's nice. But is that really worth 5 prospects, including your most recent first-round pick, including a guy who was one of the top 100 prospects in baseball before arm injuries happened last year in Alejandro Rosario, and another really high riser in your system in Devin Fiz-Gerald, as well as a couple of other interesting prospects as well. But the real answer as to why is because Gore is such a talented pitcher, and the Nationals, even though they won a national championship, it technically was a Nationals championship in 2019, but since then they have not done a good job, really honestly, in their history of their organization. They have not done a good job of getting the most out of pitchers. And MacKenzie Gore, who was not drafted by the Nationals, he was acquired by Washington in the original Juan Soto trade, drafted by the San Diego Padres, former Texas Rangers assistant GM, now head chief baseball person of the San Diego Padres. He was drafted 3rd overall by that Padres team. AJ Preller has just such an incredible eye for talent, and MacKenzie Gore is no exception. Heck, it might be the best pitcher that he has ever drafted, developed, scouted, signed, whatever. MacKenzie Gore has such unreal talent, and being a high school pitcher who was drafted 3rd overall, that does not happen because high school pitching prospects are very, very, very rarely drafted in the top 5, let alone the top 3. Heck, even the top 10, it is rare to see a high school pitching prospect drafted because they are so far away from the big leagues. They are so risky. Pitching prospects, there's an old saying that there's no such thing as a pitching prospect because injuries happen all the time. Throwing a baseball 95 plus miles an hour 100 times every 5 days is just murder on the arm, elbow, shoulder, and all of that. And so even the most high upside pitching prospect, it is still very risky to take them out of high school. Usually when they're drafted out of college, they're significantly more finished product. And that's why you see if a pitcher is being drafted in the top 5, top 3, number 1 overall, like Paul Skeens, they're usually coming out of college and they're not that far away from the big leagues. But Gore was quite away from the big leagues, but the talent was just unreal. Lefties who throw this hard are exceedingly rare. And the swing and miss stuff is exceptional for Gore. The swing and miss rate is amongst the top 20% of Major League Baseball. The chase rate in the top 30% of baseball. Now, he did have some troubles limiting hard contact. He did have some troubles not getting a whole lot of ground balls and a little bit of a trouble with walking guys, but the extension is very good for Gore. I mean, in the top 15% of baseball, which means that not only is he throwing 95 miles an hour, it's coming at you earlier. It looks even harder than 95 miles an hour, and he's lefty. And so that is exceedingly rare. And the Rangers have done a good job of getting the most out of starting pitcher. I'll talk a little bit more about the starters that the Rangers have gotten the most out of in relievers as well. But Chris Young has done a fantastic job. And the Rangers pro scouting team, the team that looks, team of scouts that looks at MLB players and sees them on other teams and says, yeah, that team is not getting the most out of this guy. If he were to come here, we could tweak this pitch. We could add this pitch. We could tell him to throw this pitch more, or, tweak his delivery just a little bit. Whatever they've done, I'm not privy to exactly the kinds of changes they've made, but they have been very smart at how they acquire players and the players specifically that they acquire, knowing that they can get the most out of them. And for the most part, not 100% hit rate, but they have a very high hit rate of seeing talented players on other teams and who are underperforming and making them better with this team. And really the main reason of why him is because he's so talented. And why now? The real answer to that question is that the Rangers need to win now. They needed to improve their team, because before this move, I thought the Rangers looked closer to a 78, maybe 81 win team. They looked pretty similar to the type of team that they were last year. And that's with me being kind of on the optimistic side. I thought maybe if I was more pessimistic and they didn't have as much health and growth from the young players, then they might be a 75 win team. According to Evan Grant, the Rangers' internal projections before this move, they saw themselves as an 85, 86 win team, which I think is very optimistic. I think that is them projecting that every pitcher is going to be healthy. This was before the Gore trade. They thought they were an 85, 86 win team. I don't know that they were. I really don't. That's probably assuming a full season of health from Corey Seager and him being the all-star superstar top 5 hitter in Major League Baseball that he could be and kind of has been for the last couple of years when he's healthy. But they're projecting a lot more health from him. They think they're projecting a lot of growth from Wyatt Langford. I think they're projecting a lot of growth and health for Evan Carter as well. And, if that is the case, then maybe this team was an 85 win team before MacKenzie Gore. Maybe. Also, if you get a bounce back from Jock Peterson, he looks more like, maybe not, all-star caliber DH type, but, very, very good hitter, solid, serviceable DH type that, makes your lineup a lot deeper. That would be an improvement. Brandon Nimmo, maybe they are higher on getting the most out of him, more than he had been getting out of himself for the last couple of years with the Mets. Maybe they're envisioning a high on base guy who can, hit lefties well as a left-handed hitter, give you some occasional pop and play decent defense in the outfield. Maybe that's a 2-3, things break really right. Maybe a 4-win player. I think he's more of a 2 to 3 win player, which is a solid, serviceable guy to put out there every day in what I hope eventually is left field. Maybe it's right field. It doesn't really make that big of a difference at this point. But those were some pretty optimistic projections. And same for Josh Young and for Jake Berger on the corner infield spots, of them getting better to closer to the career averages that they've had versus the players that they've actually been. And same for Josh Smith, of him being closer to, pre-All-Star break 2024 Josh Smith versus kind of what he's been in the second half, or at least being consistent across the whole season, as opposed to what he's done the last couple of years, which has been borderline all-star player. I'd say all-star caliber player in 2024 in the first half, and borderline all-star caliber player in the first half of 2025, but very not great hitter in the second half of those last couple seasons. Maybe him just holding down second base every day is going to help him. Defensively, it's going to be a little bit of a drop off, but still, these were some optimistic projections. Also projecting health for, your mid to late 30s starting rotation, top 2 of Jacob deGrom and Nathan Eovaldi, and Jack Leiter maybe take another step and being healthy. And then whoever the, 4 and 5 of this rotation ended up being, whether it was, Cody Bradford coming back at some point in May, whether that was Jacob Latz being a starter throughout the whole season, or Kumar Rocker taking another step and, maybe having a Jack Leiter 2025-esque March. That would be really awesome for both Rocker and for this Texas Rangers squad. But I thought that was really optimistic. And really, why now and why this move is because the Rangers needed to get better. If you think you are an 85, 86 win team, which I don't, I did not think they were an 85, 86 win team before this move. You need to find a way to get those extra wins, to project yourself as more of an 89 to 90 win team. And then maybe with some good luck, you become a 91, 92 win team, you stay in the postseason, and then you can actually do some damage there. And this is one of the few moves available that actually pushes the needle and would get them those few extra wins. We're talking about some of the other moves that they could have made and didn't made, and why I think this is a better move than any of those possible other moves that they could have made. And that's why it's MacKenzie Gore. Talk about what those moves are and more right after this. This show is brought to you by TurboTax. Tax season doesn't have to take over your life. This year, TurboTax is making it easier than ever to just hand things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax Full Service, you can have your taxes done for you by a local, trusted expert, start to finish, without the stress or the guesswork. Instead of spending hours trying to figure out your forms, you can meet with a local TurboTax expert in person or connect online. They handle everything from W-2s to self-employment forms and work to get you every single deduction. It's a huge time saver, and it gives real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it. For a limited time, you can have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150 all in. If a TurboTax expert didn't file for you last year, just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local to book your appointment today. Shout out to the Everyday Faking Locked On Rangers, your first listen every single day. On Monday's show, I'll be back and talking a little bit more about how this affects the rest of this rotation. For those who want to be a part of the Everydayers, who want to be a part of the Everydayer Club, just go to lockedontexasrangers.supercast.com to join the Everydayer Club. It's $5 a month. You get access to an exclusive Discord. You also get access to ad-free episodes of the show. I'll be talking up a storm, have been since the trade, about what's going on. You'll get updates about the show, all kinds of different stuff, as a member of the Locked On Texas Rangers Everydayer Club. Now, the Rangers needed to get better. They just straight up needed to be better if they wanted to contend in 2026. And they needed to contend in 2026 because they have so many star players that are in points of their careers where they just need to be contending, and points in their, payment cycles where they need to be contending. When you hand out a 10-year, $300+ million deal to any free agent, I don't care who that free agent is, 99.999% of the time, by years 8, 9, and 10 of that deal, the player is no longer really worth $30 million or $32.5 million per year. But that's how you get free agents. You overpay for the front end years when they are still awesome, and then the back end, it becomes a bit of a burden. That's just the way baseball works, because players are super underpaid for the first 6 years of their careers, and then you kind of make that money back if you make it to free agency. If you are one of those top superstar players, you get it, basically paid back in full. That's just the way free agency works. It's why Marcus Semion's deal was always going to look a little bit bad in years, 5, 6, and 7, assuming that he didn't age like Adrian Beltre, which really nobody ever has besides Adrian Beltre himself and Barry Bonds. But Barry Bonds had a little bit of help from some chemically aided substances that are more rigorously tested for in today's day and age. But because of that, you're still getting Corey Seager right now in his prime. He is still exceptional. He is still one of the best players in baseball, one of the best shortstops in baseball. And truly, there is nobody I would rather have on my team in a postseason series than Corey Seager. The man has 2 World Series MVP. And when it gets to the postseason, we saw it in 23 that this guy just locks in to another level. I'm pretty sure he just loses consciousness. He just becomes conscious of only baseball, just wakes up, eats, sleeps, and breathes baseball. Literally becomes the most actualized version of the Corey Seager baseball bot that he can be. Same with Jacob deGrom. Jacob deGrom is at his peak right now, or, well, maybe a little bit off of his peak. He's still close enough to one of the best pitchers in baseball. He's not the best pitcher in baseball right now, but he still has that capability. Every 5th day when he goes out there, you trot him out there in game 1 of a postseason series. I don't care who you're going up against. Jacob deGrom can match whoever's on the mound, whether it's, Tarek Skubal, whether it's MacKenzie Gore opposite him, whether it's Shohei Ohtani, maybe very few people can match Yoshinobu Yamamoto in a postseason series with what we just saw last year. But Jacob deGrom, there are very few pitchers that I feel better about having as my game 1 starter. And your game 2 starter, if that's Nathan Eovaldi, I mean, this man is postseason magic. These are 2 pitchers that are on the older side, but still very, very good. Nathan Eovaldi still finding new ways to be incredible. Last year, the best year of his career. And if not for a couple injuries, I really think that this guy might have at least gotten closer to the Cy Young conversation. I mean, a sub 2 ERA in 130 innings and 20 starts. That was an incredible season that I'm deeply shocked that he did not get even a single vote for Cy Young. I'm just blown away. Not enough people were paying attention to what Nathan Eovaldi was doing last year. But all of that to say, you have all of those guys making a lot of money and still are very good. So you need to be contending at that point. Same with Wyatt Langford and Evan Carter, 2 of these guys who are pre-arbitration eligible. And same with Jack Leiter, even to an extent, a lesser extent, but still some extent nonetheless. When you've got very good players who have not yet reached arbitration, who are not even making 200K above the league minimum, they're making all right around the league minimum because they are pre-arbitration players. That gives you more money to work with to go spend on better players at supplemental positions and go compete. You need to be competing and making the most of that window. I mean, it's the most valuable commodity in baseball is pre-arbitration players who are very good, all-star caliber. That's what Evan Carter is when he's healthy. That's what Wyatt Langford is when he is, playing the way that he has for the last couple of years. That's honestly what Jack Leiter was for the second half of last year. And so this window of contention is open, and the Rangers need to do something to get better. Now, if it were my way, then, and it was not, since it's not my money, it's very easy to say, oh, hey, why don't you just go spend a crap ton of money? Why don't you go get one of those big free agents that are out there? There are plenty of pretty good players out there on the free agent market. They could have maybe been, I don't know, with Kyle Tucker, what kind of deals he was being offered. But if you felt really optimistic about Kyle Tucker, I mean, he's a very good player. I don't think the Rangers were going to pay him, $60 million a year for 4 years like the Dodgers did. But, there are some other very good players out there on the free agent market. Maybe the Rangers could have been a little bit more competitive about. There's still Framber Valdez on the free agent market. I mean, there were some really good free agents that have now signed. I mean, Alex Bregman, you could have upgraded there. I still like Josh Young better than paying, aging Alex Bregman for, the next 5-6 years. It's going to be 5 years with the Cubs, but still Pete Alonso, I don't love paying any first baseman a whole lot of money. Same with Kyle Schwarber. Although if you're going to pay a DH, $150 million across the span of 5 years, Kyle Schwarber is the one you'd want to do for it. But there were some other options that the Rangers could have gone about to make this team better, but they weren't going to do that because of their own self-imposed restrictions. And so you could have also gone through the trade route. There were plenty of other very talented players that were on the trading block that the Rangers possibly could have got. Actually, I think all of these guys cost less in terms of their trade value than what the Rangers gave up for MacKenzie Gore. You could have gotten Luis Robert upgraded a little bit in center field defensively, have a Gold Glove caliber guy, but he's making $20 million this year as a club option for $20 million next year. I don't think the Rangers were in the business of adding $20 million for a player who, could be an all-star or could be, mediocre to bad. I don't think the Rangers were going to do that. Freddie Peralta cost, honestly, some prospect evaluators have the package that the Milwaukee Brewers got for Freddie Peralta as a better package than what the Rangers gave up to go get 2 years of MacKenzie Gore for 1 year of Freddie Peralta. I think that is, I think the Nationals probably got a little bit better a package, but still it's not that much more. And Edward Cabrera, I mean, definitely not anywhere near the kind of package that the Rangers gave up for him. For Patrick Corbin, it wouldn't have taken nearly that much to get Cabrera, but the upside for Cabrera is much less. The health concerns are very real, and I would rather have a guy who's going to have multiple years of control. I mean, Cabrera, I think, also has 2 years of control, but he's righty, and he doesn't throw, as hard or as effectively as MacKenzie Gore. I don't think there's as much upside there trading for a guy who's been with the Marlins, who are a very smart pitching development organization, than there is trading for a pitcher with the Nationals, who are not as good at developing pitchers. Same thing goes for Ryan Weathers. There's also some other guys that are on the trading block that still have not been traded. Brendan Donovan, I don't think that's that much of an upgrade over Josh Smith, if it's even an upgrade at all. And so I wouldn't be willing to part with that many prospects to go get a Brandon Donovan. I think he's got multiple years of control. And then you could maybe go get a very, very old Nolan Arenado like the Diamondbacks did for like one mediocre prospect, and just agreeing to even with giving up one mediocre prospect, that's with the Cardinals paying, I think, $10 million of his salary this year, or maybe $10 million a year. They're eating a lot of money. And so the options to get better, to get dramatically better, there were not that many that were left there, especially at this point in the offseason with Kyle Tucker signed, with Dylan Cease signed, with so many of these big free agents signed: Bellinger, Bregman, Schwarber, Ranger Suarez, Bo Bichette, Michael King. A lot of these guys were already signed. And so the avenues to go and get better, there were not all that many of them. And how much better do the Rangers think they can make MacKenzie Gore? I'll talk about that. And if the Rangers are going to look really bad and could get burned by this prospect package, I don't think so. And I'll tell you why right after this. Now, as for how much better the Rangers think they can make MacKenzie Gore, over the last couple of years, he has been pretty good. He's been a pretty solid starter. For the last 3 seasons, he's averaged around 30 starts per season, 27 starts in 2023. In 2024, he had 32 starts, made the full season workload, did qualify amongst ERA for the ERA title because he pitched more than 162 innings, just cleared that by 4 1/3 innings. So 166 1/3 innings in 2024, which was his career high, and a 3.9 ERA that year. And then last year, 30 starts, an ERA north of 4 and 159 2/3 innings, but 185 strikeouts. And so you look at those swing and miss numbers, you look at the ERA, and you're thinking, okay, is this really a very good number 3? Is this really a guy who is worth, 5 prospects, including several guys who I really liked as prospects, several guys who I was very high on being big league? I think 4 of these guys are going to be big leaguers, and I think 3 of them might end up being pretty decent big leaguers. Now, the prospect package we'll talk about in just a second, but the reason why the Rangers think they can get more out of Gore is twofold. Number one, it's their own pitching development apparatus, whether that's all the way from, guys at the front office level, Chris Young and scouts identifying guys who have talent and getting the most out of them, of things that they have seen with this pitcher of, okay, he throws this pitch a little bit too much. We can tweak this pitch just a little bit to make it a little bit more effective. And that has been very effective. The Rangers have done a good job of identifying those types of guys and making them better, getting the most out of them. There are a lot of examples that I'm going to rattle off right here. Tyler Mahle, look at what he did last year. Tyler Mahle had never had a season anywhere close to that good, and he was incredible last year, again, when he was healthy. Patrick Corbin had been terrible for the last half decade, and he was not great, but at times pretty darn good, and a very solid, serviceable last minute, not choice number 1, but very last minute number 5 for your rotation to make 30 starts, to eat up 150 plus innings. That's the guy you got on the scrap heap at the very last minute because Cody Bradford had an injury, because John Gray had an injury. 2 of the 5 starters you were going to hope to open your season with went down within weeks of opening day, and boom, you churn out a guy as a number 5 starter who is more than serviceable in Patrick Corbin. Look at what they got out of Michael Lorenzen. He was really good at limiting runs with the Texas Rangers without striking anybody out, while still allowing a whole lot of walks. Lorenzen was still a very solid middle of the rotation to back end of the rotation guy, and the Rangers even got a real prospect for him when they traded him at the deadline in 2024. Look at what they got out of Jose Urena, who now is signed in Japan. He had a sub 4 ERA with the Rangers as a swingman in 2024. Look at what they did with Adrian Hauser. Now, you may not be very familiar with what Adrian Hauser had done before, but he was a number 5, 6, barely major league caliber starter for the last several years. And the Rangers signed him to a spring training minor league deal with a spring training invite, and they tweaked some things with him and made him that much better, to the point where they kept him around in AAA and got not much from the White Sox, but got something from the White Sox when they sent him off there. And he was very good for the White Sox, who in turn got a return from the Tampa Bay Rays. And then he signed a 2-year, $20 million deal after being not even given a major league contract. A lot of that was because maybe not all of it, but at least a decent amount of it is because Adrian Hauser signed with the Rangers in spring training. Just his spring training with the Rangers in a couple, maybe not even a couple of months. I think it's just a month with the Rangers in AAA Round Rock. They got the most out of him there. Look at what Jacob Latz has done over the last couple of years. I mean, look at the relievers. I could just rattle off Kirby Yates being one of the best relievers in all of baseball in 2024. Sean Armstrong, Hobie Milner, Jacob Webb. Part of it is the Rangers identifying talent and getting the most out of it. And the other part is the Rangers defense and also their park. The Rangers had the best defense in all of baseball last year. They won the team Gold Glove, and this year it's going to be a little bit less talented of a defense. Adrian Hauser. Adrian Hauser is still in my brain. Marcus Semien not being a part of this team and him being, I'd say, no, Corey Seager was honestly truly exceptional last year defensively, and I think that he was the best defender on this Ranger squad. But Marcus Semien very easily could have had a case. Adolis Garcia was an exceptional defensive outfielder in right field last year, truly one of the best defenders in all Major League Baseball. Both those guys are gone, and the replacements aren't quite as good defensively. I think Josh Smith won't be a huge drop off from Semien, but it'll be a pretty decent one. Not because I don't think Josh Smith is going to be a good defender, because Marcus Semien was just that good. I think Josh Smith is going to be a pretty darn good defender at second base, but not one of, if not the best defensive second baseman in baseball. That's what Marcus Semien was. And in right field, you're going to have Brandon Nimmo as opposed to Adolis Garcia. Nimmo is, I'd say, a little bit below a league average defender out there. So going from one of, if not the best defensive right fielders in baseball to a little bit below league average, that's going to hurt the defense a little bit, but you still have the rest of these spots held down by really darn good defensive players from Corey Seager. I mean, look at the leap he made last year defensively in left field and center field. You're going to have some combination of Evan Carter and Wyatt Langford. Again, hoping both those guys are healthy and playing. And when you're not having Evan Carter, you're going to have Michael Hellman, who is a great defensive outfielder. When you're not having Josh Smith, you'll have probably Sam Haggerty out there at second base, who is a pretty darn good defensive second baseman. And then at catcher, you'll have Danny Jansen, and you'll also have Kyle Higashioka. So a lot better defense and a more pitcher-friendly park than the Nationals. And last year, the Nationals defense was not the worst in Major League Baseball, but definitely bottom three. Most metrics had them about the second worst defense in all of Major League Baseball last year. And so not only is he getting a better pitching coaching staff and, having Nathan Eovaldi on his staff, that's going to help him get better. He's got a great front office that will find some different tweaks for him to be better and who have a significantly better defense. And so when teams are acquiring players, they're definitely not looking at pitcher record. They're not really even so much looking at your ERA as much anymore. They're not really looking at what you did. They're more concerned with what you could do for them. And MacKenzie Gore, the future of MacKenzie Gore is in a widely untapped potential. And this guy is just so darn talented. I see why the Rangers are so darn high on him, why they traded so many prospects to go and get this guy. And so you traded a lot of prospects. And are these guys going to come back to hurt? Possibly. I mean, there are concerns with all of these guys, but they're still pretty darn good prospects. Gavin Fien was widely regarded as one of the best hitting prospects in baseball in the baseball draft last year. Rangers got him at the 12th pick, and it's not often that you trade your most recent first round pick less than a year after you drafted him. I mean, Fien, there are some legitimate concerns about his defense. I mean, he was listed, the Rangers said he was a shortstop, and Jeff Passan and most other places had him as a third baseman. Maybe down the line he ends up as a first baseman. There really aren't concerns about his hit tool. I think he's going to be a really good hitter at the major league level, but he's still a long, long way away from making an impact at the big league level. Devin Fiz-Gerald, that one may end up hurting the most out of this whole entire group. Fitz-Gerald made some huge strides. He was not a particularly high draft pick. I believe a top 5 round pick in 2024, if my memory is serving me correctly. But he was one of the biggest risers of position players in this system. There were not a whole lot of bright spots of hitters in the system, but Devin Fiz-Gerald was definitely one of them. Abimelec Ortiz, he's probably going to be a decent hitter in Major League Baseball, probably just a first baseman / DH type, but still, you could always use one more bat in this lineup. Yermi Cabrera is still a long ways off. And then last guy who could end up hurting the most in this trade, but there's just been so many weird things going on with Alejandro Rosario, the right-handed pitcher who the Rangers drafted in the 5th round a couple years back and was a huge breakout prospect in 2024. He's got 3 potential plus pitches. He commands the strike zone. He doesn't beat himself with walks. and he throws all the way up to 100 miles an hour. But there are some real concerns about his injury history, and not just having Tommy John surgery or not having Tommy John surgery. That's the main one, is that he tore his UCL last year, 11 months ago to the day that I am recording this, on February 23rd. It was announced that he would need to have surgery to repair his UCL. Now, you never know exactly how bad it's going to be until you go in there and actually do the surgery, whether it's going to be internal brace or whether it's going to be the full-on Tommy John surgery. So 12 to 15 months of recovery versus 10 to 12 months for internal brace. You never know until you go in there. But they still haven't gone in there. He still has not had Tommy John surgery or any UCL repair surgery. And there has not been really much of a reasoning as to why. It is still 11 months later. He still has not had the surgery. So if he has the surgery tomorrow, if he has it tomorrow, he's going to be back maybe around the All-Star break of 2027, maybe, or maybe he's going to delay it another few months. I don't know exactly what's going to happen. I mean, I don't know why it still hasn't happened. I feel like I was the only person talking about it last year of why the heck has he not had Tommy John surgery throughout the whole year? Just no updates. The only update was some cryptic writing from Evan Grant of the Dallas Morning News about what happened. It's literally one sentence in the fourth to last paragraph of Evan Grant's story on the Dallas Morning News website, talking about the risk of making this trade. He said, or that Rosario, after battling serious health issues and a bad elbow, will emerge as a starter at least as good as Gore, or, well, you get the picture. And that's it. You get battling serious health issues. That's the only explanation for why it's been 11 months and he still has had no Tommy John or any kind of UCL repair surgery. It is just one of the more perplexing situations that I think I've ever seen. And so you've already missed a full year, going to miss at the very least the entirety of 2026. And maybe if this goes on much longer, you could miss the entirety of 2027. That could be 3 years of development gone from prospect who I was at the beginning of, in this time last year. I was higher on Rosario than I was on Jack Leiter or Kumar Rocker. And that is because of what was happening on the field in 2024. Now, things changed very dramatically, but still, this deal, when you trade this many prospects, it could end up coming back to bite you. It very much could. And Gore could get hurt too. I mean, that's a possibility. He's a pitcher and he throws 95. That is entirely possible. But to get yourself this much better, which is significantly better. I'll talk about how much better the rotation is on Monday's episode of Locked On Rangers. But to get yourself this much better, you've got to take risk. And I have to commend Chris Young because he has not been afraid to take risks. Bold risks, big choices to make his team better. It worked out in a very big way in 2023. It did not work out in 2025 when he took some less bold risks to kind of patch a few holes on this team, but not really get all that much better, but also not completely tear things down. It's just kind of a middling approach the last couple of years. This offseason, although he was hamstrung by his budget, he made some deliberate moves, and this is a huge, huge move for the win now. I don't know if it's going to work out, but I am much higher on the Rangers right now than I was 3 days ago. And that is a huge win for the prospects of how good this team could be in 2026. That'll do it for today's show. Thank you all so much for listening and subscribing. And until next time, don't forget to enjoy baseball.